Object classes are an essential feature in Python. Classes can be used for so many things, including creating many versions of an object and storing variables in an object. Today, I will make a Pygame project to show you the full potential of object classes, as well as Pygame sprites. And yes, I do play Minecraft. Alright, now I'm in PyCharm and I have my new project. First, I'm going to get rid of this, that little red thing. I'm going to delete this because we don't have to use the default script. Although it is recommended that you use their startup script because of reasons. Anyway, first thing first, let's start by importing Pygame. We're going to use random. And I'm gonna create a new Python file. I'm gonna call it Sprite. And in here we're gonna import Sprite. So we're gonna be using 2 Python modules. Now as you can see, we have an error for Pygame. So we're gonna go to File, and then we're gonna go to Settings. And if you're not already here, you might be in Appearance and Behavior. And so you just need to find your project, find your object classes tutorial, and go to your Python interpreter. And now you should have this install button. So click that, and we're just going to simply look up Pygame. This is the easiest way to install it in PyCharm. If you're not in PyCharm, just do pip3 install Pygame or Python install Pygame. All of those should work. And this should work for versions that aren't in Python 3.10, but I recommend using Python 3.10. Alright, our is no longer here. So first thing we need to do in Pygame is we need to initialize Pygame. So let's do pygame.init. Let's define some colors. We can do that just by going here, and we need to put these parentheses, and it's just RGB colors. So put our values. I'll also do blue. That's simple. It's RGB, so do 0, 0, 255, and then black also. I don't know if we'll use all of these. Just useful, or if we ever need to reference colors as well. Now let's set the window dimensions, because we're gonna need that. However, I'm gonna make it resizable so that we'll be able to change these by, pressing the full screen button in Windows. If you're not using Windows, that's fine. Do whatever you want. Let's do the screen surface. If you're not doing Pygame, you can always skip ahead if you just want to see the object classes. So let's do width and height here. And to make it resizable, we'll do pygame.resizable. Awesome. And now let's just set the window caption or title, however you want to call it. However, Pygame calls it a caption. Pygame.display.set caption. And let's do object classes tutorial. That's all we're gonna do for now. Now we're gonna go to actually do the object classes, and we'll do that by heading over to our sprite file. So import Pygame, and then let's just make a sprite group. This is just functionality to control sprites in Pygame. However, you don't need to do this. Now let's create the class. If you don't know how to create a class, that's what you're here for. But it's simple. You start with class, then you create you put your name. It's just like a function except better. Of course, depends on what you're using the function for, of course. To make it a sprite, I'm just gonna put this sprite in here. And now we're gonna talk about how objects work. So when you initialize a sprite, you're creating a variable. So my sprite would equal a sprite. However, this does nothing. So when I do this, I want something to happen. And the way I can do that is by simply adding an init function of the auto thing here. Let's add our variable, and these variables are what you would put in our bracket, in our parentheses. So when we call our sprite, we need a color, so we would do white or whatever, and we would need a width and height. And this is going to create a sprite. So first we need to make this init function proper, and now it will work. Now we need our Pygame sprite. This is all stuff for Pygame. Now this self, you're probably wondering what this self is, as you can see, it auto added it when I pressed tab in Python. And this is how we store variables. As I said in the intro, we can store variables inside of this class. So each time I create a new variable that's calling this class, each time I create this class, it has its own set of variables that can be called throughout every function in the class. And you call it by doing self dot, and then we're going to create a variable called image. The good thing about these variables is that they can be called outside of the object. And the way we do that is by creating our sprite. So we would just do this, width and height, and then we would put simply sprite.image, and now we can set this to whatever we want. So we can literally change it right here. However, we're not doing that just yet because we haven't gotten to that functional part. So to draw this on the screen, we're just going to do pygame.draw.rect, and then we're going to use our variable self.image. We're going to finally implement our color, and then we're going to create our hitbox or rect. So just put our width and height. PyCharm is an amazing IDE, so if you ever get confused with it, it usually has some sort of helpful hints. Now we're going to create another variable, as you can see, self.rect. This is going to be our position. So for now, we're going to use self.image.getRect. And we're going to change the rect outside of this function. Now, I'm simply going to copy this now, putting our second function in. All right, now we have our object function. As you can see, I've changed quite a few things. First of all, we've gotten rid of the super. We've also changed the name of the function to change sprite. Now, you can name these functions anything. They're just a function, like any normal function, except they're inside of this class. So how would you call it? Well, it's just like calling the variable. First, you would create your sprite by doing sprite equals sprite, or however you want, whatever you want it to be named. Then you would take your variable, and then you would do change sprite, and voila, you've called change sprite. Now, obviously, I don't need to make this object function, but just to show you how to make this function, I just made it the same. So this will literally just be able to change what is in our initialization. Of course, if I wanted to change the sprite on initialize, all I had to do is change the color, height, and width. However, I'm not going to do that. So now let's finally get into creating the object class. So we're going to go back to our main.py file, and in this main.py file, we're going to finally create our first function. So let's call this spawn sprite. We're going to create this version. So delete old sprite objects because when we spawn our sprite in this particular instance, I don't want the other sprite to be on the screen. So now, remember that sprites list that we created in sprites.py? I'm gonna call that, and I'm just gonna do empty, and that will empty of it, and all of our sprites will be deleted. So now we need to create the new sprite object, or spawn the new sprite object. So let's create a for loop for I in range of, let's finally use our random and create a random integer, so whole number, that's in between 5 and 32. Yeah, that'll work. We don't want it to clutter up the screen because we are going to be spawning a bunch of sprites on our screen. So now let's add sprite class to the variable, and this will call our init, as I said before. So let's just create a new variable called current sprite, and let's do sprite.sprite, and then for our color, width, and height. So color will do black, width will do 20 pixels, and height will do 20 pixels as well. So it's going to be a black cube. However, you see this version that we imported, we haven't used that yet. So for version 2, we're going to call a function. And how do we call the function? Well, first we're going to create a variable for our new size, because we don't want it to be any old size. We're going to create a random size. So some more randomness. And now we're going to modify current sprite. We're going to do that by changing the sprite. And now this is going to be kind of interesting because we're creating a new color every single time. So we have a lot of these random integers. So let's do, this is just random RGB code. So let's just copy this and create 3 of them. So that's our RGB done. And now we're going to do our width and height, which is just going to be our new size. And that way we still have our square, because we want it to be the same width and same height. So now we have that if statement done. We're going to change our position. So we're not actually changing the position inside of the object, but we're going to edit the ref variable to set where it spawns, because this is all happening at the same time, so it won't look like it's changing its position. So we're not going to do pygame. So our rect.x is going to be random.random integer, and then we're simply going to make it anywhere on the screen. So let's do screen.getWidth, and for the y, we're going to do the exact same thing. So except this time, we're going to do the screen height. And the reason why I'm not just putting width and height here, since we already have those variables, is because they can change. Because remember, we set it to resizable. They're not always going to be the same. However, width and height variables are not changing. We have to do get width and get height. So now we have to add it to the sprite list so that we can draw the sprite in our game loop, which we will do right after this. So sprites.sprite list, and we're going to add our current sprite. And that's it for this spawning sprite. We're finally going to start our game loop. Now, for those of you who might have not done Pygame before, to create a game loop, we simply use a while true. However, in order to stop the game loop, you can do while running and just have running set to true. This way, when we want to stop the game loop or end the game, we can just do set running to false. So running is just a simple true or false boolean. So while running, now we're first going to do checking event. Now this is getting deep into Pygame stuff. So let's do some Pygame. For events in pygame.event.get, we are going to do our quit first. So event.site equals pygame.quit. Now this will see if we're quitting out of the game loop. So simply what we're going to do is we're going to stop the game loop. Just like I said before, we're going to set indenting. We're just going to set running to false. And now we need to check if key is pressed. So the way we do that is very simple. If event.type equals key down, not that. It equals pygame.key down. That means that we just pressed a key. Key up, we can also do, that's when you release a key. So if there's a key down, now we need to check for specific keys. So check key S. If event more formatting. If event.key equals pygame.k underscore s, that will be the key S. Then we want to spawn sprite. Now we're finally gonna call our spawn sprites function. More formatting. And we're just gonna set version, which is our variable, to false. Now we're gonna check key C for change, S for spawn, and event.key, very simple, same as before. You can even just copy and paste it. And we're just gonna change that to K underscore C and spawn sprites again. This is simply the exact same thing, except we're gonna spawn it with true. So this is our second version. Now we're gonna go out of the event loop, and we're gonna set the background color. Yay! Finally, some formatting. So we're gonna do screen.fill. Not formatting. Design. Screen.fill blue, and then we're going to draw our sprite. And the way we do this is we just take our sprite list, and then we're gonna call the function draw. And we need to set a screen, I believe. Yeah. And now we're gonna finally just flip the display because we want to see our stuff. And outside of the loop, we're gonna quit the game, because after the game loop is over, we want to quit. Now that I have this screen, I'm just gonna press either the key S or C, and let's see what happens. So key S, we have our random number of sprites that are all black and size 20 by 20. So, and they're in random position. So I can literally just spam this, and each time the old ones will get deleted and the new ones will appear. Each of these sprites can be individually controlled via their variables. Now we have our C button. Our C button does the exact same thing except we call the change sprite. So as you can see, that's how you call functions. That works. I hope you learned about object classes and how to make Pygame sprite. I mean, this probably isn't the best tutorial for just object classes since I am using Pygame. I'll probably make a more sprite specific tutorial in the form of a YouTube short soon. Stay tuned for that, and goodbye.